Hey everybody, and welcome to my In5 series on the MPC Live, where I cover a topic in about 5 minutes. Casual Organism over on Discord reached out and asked me if I could do a video on how to record Eurorack into the MPC auto sampler down here. And yeah, I'm gonna give it a try. He in particular wanted to know how to record content that has some LFOs or some other evolving effects. And I have a few thoughts and opinions on that. We'll get into it. But let's start with just how I have things set up here. So the first thing to know is all these colored cables coming up from the top are connected to my MPC CV outs. I have them color coded so that I know which one is CV1, 2, 3, up to 8. So for me personally, the red cable here is CV1, the orange is CV2, and the yellow CV3. And by default, when you create a CV program, so we'll do that. You'll see CV port is set to CV1 and gate port is set to CV2. I'm also going to set velocity to CV3. So basically this means we'll get our pitch data, we'll get our trigger, note trigger and hold data, and we'll get our velocity. So if we want to adjust things like the velocity or other things, we totally can do that. That is how I'm going to kind of patch this together, and we'll just start really basic and simple. I've got Roved here, which is a pretty nice synthesizer and sound, and I'm just going to take the pitch data here, and I'm going to go into volts per octave. And what this allows us to do is, you can see, hopefully you can see it over here with the LEDs. Well, there is an LED that you might not be able to see behind here, but if I tap, it is basically the brightness is based on the value that is being sent. So where it's just constantly sending a CV output of pitch data. Once you hit one, we can only hit one note at a time. So you can have to understand that you can't do polyphonic very easily with CV in Eurorack like this. But that said, we're now sending pitch data. You should be able to see here, this light is going on and off based on whether I'm holding, tapping, or letting go of the pad. And then the velocity here is just going to be based on how hard I hit that pad. So if I do it really softly, that LED is going to be pretty low. And if I hit it pretty hard, it's going to be nice and bright. So this is basically how we're going to get the MPC to communicate to Eurorack. Now, I'm going to turn it down first, just so we don't blast our ears. But I'm just going to do, actually, let me use a different cable. And we're going to go straight from the output on Roved to the Eurorack line output here. And I'm going to turn the volume up. And you can probably hear there's some, maybe if you got headphones or something, maybe you'll hear it. There's a little bit of bleeding. Eurorack can be kind of dirty, and I'm going through a compressor and stuff, so I'm not super worried about it. But I'm going to double tap mix. We can see we're getting something. And if I hit on, turn the monitoring on, we now have some content. I'm going to turn it back down because, I don't know, to me, not super interesting to record tones. We could, but I don't know, not super into it. Instead, what I think I want to do is patch in this gate. So basically, when we tap a pad, we want to go to an envelope. This is a pretty traditional setup. I'm going to use Apex up here. And now when I tap the pad, the gate signal will trigger the ADSR up here. And the LED up here is just showing us what the envelope kind of brightness is, like how loud this is going to be. So with that, I can now patch a little bit differently. And let's go this way. I'm going to take this out for a second. We'll go output into my quad VCA. And this is what's going to actually attenuate the volume that we're generating, or the volume control from the ADSR. So we're going to plug that in. And then we just need to go out again. So we're going to take the output, go back to the input here, and then that will convert us to line level. So now we can see when I hit the pad, we're going through an envelope. So I can turn this back up. And we're not we're now sending pitch data and we're sending the gate trigger to the envelope. So we now actually have something we can auto sample. So let's just name this patch or the program that we have. So I'm just going to call this synth 01. Say do it. And if I double tap mix to go to the sampler, you hit that icon and we get into the auto sampler. And what we're doing is we're just going to record notes from C2 to C4, and it's going to skip every 6 steps. So it's going to do like C and then I forget, like not G, but like E or something. But we're only going to record like 6 notes, maybe 8 notes, 4, something like that. And we're going to get it named here. So I'm just going to go do it. And as a result of this, it's going to basically chop up all these samples into key groups so that we can then play this both chromatically and polyphonically if we choose. If you wanted to still go back and set it to mono, you totally could do that. But this is almost done. And you'll see in a second that if we go to, let's just name this CV track. And then I'm just going to go to 2 and I'm going to go to keyboard. And now we have the synth auto sample. And it's going to play based on whatever the auto sample settings are for the program. But you can see now I can play this polyphonically. I can play all kinds of notes, do all kinds of fun stuff with it. So really basic patch, nothing like super exciting. But as you see, like we can't change any of the sound here, but if I go back to CV track, I can go do all kinds of other adjustments to the knobs and controls here in Eurorack. So, and we can auto sample as much as we want. So let's say like I want to do something a little bit different. And this is where I would say the auto sampling for like having 6 steps can become problematic. Let's say we want to go into, we'll go into Ghost up here. I'm going to take the output and go audio out, and then we'll still bring that back to the output here. I now can control stuff like the low pass filter. Let's go set that right to the middle. Now I've got a delay, and if I go sample this now, because we're starting to bake in like an effect, and I'm sorry that's got some of those bleed. I need to go back through and check how some of my things are configured, but not today. Anyway, if I go in and do the auto sampler, I just renamed it to Synth 2 so we can create a new patch called Synth 2 for the auto sampler, so we can have both 1 and 2. If I go hit do it, what you're going to hear is that double tap is going to change with the pitch. So as we change the pitch, that delay effect is going to be different. There's a couple ways you can deal with this, but as you bake in like reverb or delay or other things, it can start causing you a bit of a headache. So I'm going to come in here. I'm just going to turn that off for a second, so we're not monitoring anymore. Let's go back to main. We'll go to track 2, and let's go, instead of auto sample 1, we're going to go to 2. And what's going to happen, playing like the root note sounds fine, but as we kind of go up, you can hear that delay is coming in faster. It's not a dun dun, it's now dun dun, and that can be problematic. So if you want to avoid that kind of an effect, what you have to do is make sure you come back, and I'm going to rename this to Synth 3. And effectively, this is a case for what I would say is why you would want to, instead of doing a steps of 6, you might want to do like a step of 1, because then for each note, you're getting that full effect that is baked into that patch. It's very memory intensive though, and it takes a long time to record. So I am going to do it, but it is going to tell us down below how many seconds it takes to record. So what we just did for this patch from C2 to C4 with a step of 6 is 16 seconds because it's doing, I guess, 4 samples. If I go set this to a step of 1, it's now 96 seconds. So that's a minute and a half. I'm not going to make you sit here through that, but let's say we wind this down to like even like C3 is still going to be 48 seconds. It's going to take a while, but when we go record it, oh, did it not accept that? I got to start over. Let's go make sure it's got, yeah, 48. I'm going to hit do it. Oh, because I don't know if it's capturing it or not. Because I don't have monitoring on. We can't hear what it's doing right now. So that could be a problem. We'll find out in about 30 seconds. But anyway, I would suggest if you're looking to use like guitar pedals for like reverb effects or think like a wow or flutter effect where you're having something that's very time-based and you want it to have a very consistent feel and sound to it, definitely go through and reduce the amount of steps you have. Sometimes you can get away with 2 and it won't like be so far off or so bad. It'll save you like half the time of doing one every step. Also be cognizant of like what's the note range you're looking to take, because if you don't need like C-2 up to C3 or something, just go from, C4 to C6 and use that. So let's see if this worked okay. I think we're in the range where we're outside. It's going faster and slower. You can hear for like this range, they're all playing at the same speed. So again, like I only did like 1 octave or like a little bit more than 1 octave, but it's playing at the same rate because it's got that note recorded with that baked in delay. If you're going to, as I said, like I would just consider doing as a single step instead of multiple steps if you have these kinds of time-based effects, because like a reverb that keeps getting smaller and smaller because you're playing that sample faster and faster, it'll make that space that you're recording into or playing sound much different. So oftentimes what I'll personally do when I am recording even like external synthesizers and things would be turn off like the delay effect, turn off like reverbs, sometimes LFOs, and then instead turn that stuff back on in your program on the MPC, because you can add a delay back in and then it'll run the sound pitched correctly and still get that effect for the delay or reverb or whatever that you can add in. I know they're not exactly the same. So if you have an algorithm or like Eurorack module or guitar pedal or something that you really like, it can be a little bit tough to bake that stuff in. But that's kind of like the choice that you're making is, do I play it as is and let it kind of be wonky, can be fun, or do you leverage like what we have for effects in the MPC? A couple of other things I want to show you along those lines, and this, because this isn't just like a delay problem or reverb, is we can come in and I'm just going to go straight back out. I'm going to skip the ghost up here. And instead, what I want to do is I'm going to take the LFO here from, I don't know, I keep calling it notched, even though I think it's 0 CHD or something, but we're going to go to timbre and we're going to hear the sound is going to change. Let's turn monitoring back on. Whoops. We got to get out of this, go back here. Okay. We're back on the CV track. So you can hear it like zipping a little bit as it's changing the timbre of that note. Can be fun, but it can be problematic because if we go into the sampler to go auto sample, and let's say we go back to, let's do 3 steps. We'll do a note stride of 3. Let's go back to C4, just to get like a little bit more of a range. When I go record this, what's going to happen, we'll say do it, is it's going to get a different timbre for each note because it's basically whatever the timbre is when it's the LFOs moving. And it can cause notes to sound kind of strange as they'll have different tonalities or timbres as you go through them. Maybe it's something that you want, maybe it's not, but it would be certainly something I would kind of think about and consider to make sure you're being thoughtful about which ones that you are and are not bringing over for effects. Because if you're not expecting it, or it can make things more frustrating for you. So just a consideration. But again, now I'm going to have to see. Okay, hold it, synth 030-1. Let's go turn monitoring off again for a second. So you can hear this one's kind of like a little bit of a zip to it. Almost like it's going through like a phaser or something. And then this one doesn't have that. So we got like probably these 3 notes that have one timbre. And these other notes have a different timbre. Again, it really depends on you and what kind of music you're trying to make. And do you think that's creative having notes kind of change values or not? But it's something I would certainly think about and consider when trying to put something together to record to auto sample, to make sure that I don't have anything that's like a surprise for me or kind of a gotcha. Because it can certainly, like, at LFO rates where it's going and changing, it can be kind of fast, but not like if I go really fast, you're probably going to play the note. Oh, and I got to go actually over here. Oh, it doesn't like that, I guess. Oh, no, I turned off monitoring. Like something like this where it's happening so fast that you're probably not going to catch this as a listener. Probably fine. But again, like you can hear, like even just playing this one note, there's a lot of variety in how it's sounding just from each trigger. And that can be something that could become problematic for you as you're trying to make music. So just a consideration. I'm not saying you definitely want to crank everything up to go crazy. Not saying that you don't want to have different notes playing different sounds, but I would certainly consider how you might want to try and think about either auto sampling and recording, or how you want to go about and approach some of those types of things, because they can become challenging. Anyway, guys, I hope this helps you out. Keep making music, keep having fun. Remember, if it sounds good, it is good. And peace.